with many of this offseason's big events done and over with, we're going to be going over some teams that we think probably could have done some more this offseason. They didn't do enough, or they didn't do anything at all. We each chose a team, and we're going to be going over all of those in this video. The ones we chose, we're going to be going a little bit of conversation back and forth, what we think, and why the reasons are that we think that they are not, they didn't have a good offseason. I'm going to start off with my team here, the Minnesota Wild. As you can see here, added one player in Pat Maroon. They lost, presumptively at this point, Matt Dumba, John Klingberg, Gustav Nyquist, Sam Steele, and Ryan Reeves. This is no fault of management at all, though. There's not much the Minnesota Wild could have done in this situation with the buyout penalties, as you know here, over the next 2 years, $14.7 million. They have about 5.8, around about $5 million now left in cap space, but that still is without the signings of Philip Gustafsson and Kalen Addison. So, I don't really expect many more big additions, if any at all, to be made other than those guys. So that's why I think Minnesota had one of the worst off seasons, but it is not, there's nothing they can do about it. It is what it is at this point. I'm a Minnesota Wild fan, as I'm sure you all know by now. So we just kind of got to live with it for the next 2 years. And it kind of gives us another opportunity now to see some younger guys get worked into the lineup, which I'm kind of a fan of. We're still competing for a playoff spot and trying to go deeper in the playoffs. But with what we have done and what we can do with the monetary the salary situation, I don't think there's much that we can do. You can see here with a tweet from Joe Smith, the Minnesota Wild have around $5.4 million in cap after the Duhaime signing, which happened earlier today. A 1 year, $1.1 million avoiding arbitration. Per cap friendly, assuming Rossi and Faber are on the roster, they still have to sign Kalen Addison and Philip Gustafsson, like I just said. Nothing imminent or close on Gustafsson, who has August 4th arbitration hearing scheduled. So the Minnesota Wild, we're in deep water. We're pretty tough. We're in a pretty rough situation, what I can say. It's not the best. Philip Gustafsson is a must, I think, for this team. You know how good he played last season. He kind of is the future for now until we have Jesper Wallstedt ready and into the system, which is not going to be anytime soon. But I've said it a million times this offseason, I'll say it again. Nothing we can do about it. I know that it's tough. It's very, very tough for the Minnesota Wild, but we're going to have to live with it. It is what it is. No additions can be made. You get Patrick Maroon, a guy who won 3 Stanley Cups, the Tampa Bay Lightning recently, and then his whole career, he's been that guy to replace Ryan Reeves, get that locker room presence. He's not there to score goals. He's not there to get, assists. He's not there to be a playmaker, but he's there for that locker room to get these young guys glued together. So it's not a good offseason, but it can't get much worse, but it can't get much better is the best way to put it. What do you guys think about this Minnesota offseason? It's not the best.
Yeah, I think you touched on it fine with the whole dead cap situation. Obviously, they're in a pretty rough boat over there with it was Parise and Suter's contracts being bought out. So it's I think it's only 2 more years at $7 million, and then it gets a little bit better.
Yeah, it's rough.
I was just gonna pretty much say the same thing. There's, like you said, there's nothing you can do, and it's bad when those salaries that you're paying right there add up to more than what Connor McDavid is making per season. So that's how you know that you literally can't do anything about it. This is just something they're gonna have to live with, and the future is bright for Minnesota. When those contracts end, you'll be able to sign some of the prospects that you have coming up. Some guys that are going to need deals around that time. I don't know who exactly. You got guys like Wallstedt going to be coming up. You've got Lambos. You've got a lot of young prospects that are going to come up and need contracts going to be able to sign. You won't even have to sign them to big deals at that time because they won't be past the 3 years yet. So I'm going to say the future's bright, but right now it's really rough.
Yeah, for sure. Who do you have, Noah? What team did you choose for a lacking offseason for terms?
I chose the Islanders. The first off, the big red flag for me was those Mayfield and Engvall extension. They signed him. What is that? 7 years at I think it's $3 million. $3 million for Engvall, and then I think it was 3 point something for 3.5 for Mayfield. For 7 years, I don't know if I really like that. That's a lot of term and decent AAV for those guys, but too much term. I also thought they were supposed to be rumored in on Debrincat, but obviously he went out to Detroit, so I think bringing a guy like him would have made a lot of sense. I also think they're pretty much going to be running back the same sort of group that they did last year. You got the lines there, Kirk, if you want to throw them up there. Yeah, that's pretty much the same core they had last year, and we've seen how they didn't finish terrible, but not where they kind of wanted to be. So I don't see how that makes total sense. I will also touch on the Sorokin deal. I do like the Sorokin deal. They signed him, I think it was 8 years, 8.5, which is not a bad contract. So I mean, that's the only real green flag, I guess I'll say, I liked about the Islanders offseason.
Yeah, I gotta say, the contracts are not bad, but I do agree with you. The term is a bit weird for those guys. I don't really know why you'd go out full-fledged and put 7 years on them, like, for just straight up and say give it to them. You know, anything can happen in those 7 years. We've seen it happen many times before. The salary is not bad, the AAV, but the term could be an issue down the road, whatever happens to him. You never know when a career-ending injury happens and forced out for a long time. Anything can happen.
Yeah, still throwing out that same old boring team out there. Sorry, Islanders fans, but I just can't stand watching this group play hockey.
It's a different team for sure, or different style team. I bet I should say.
You got to be a fan of that team to watch them play hockey.
Yeah,
but I had nothing against your fans. You guys' fans are awesome. Like, fans are probably some of the best in the league. Get really and John Tavares, that whole thing was like kind of funny. But anyways, like that team just doesn't scare me when it comes down to like what you need to. They could get into the playoffs. They got into the playoffs by like a few points last season, but that team is not winning anything. Like, I don't really know why they're keeping on like running it back here. Like, it should have been over like after they lost to Tampa Bay in that conference final there a couple of years ago. I mean, it was over for Montreal pretty fast after that, but they lost to Tampa Bay. So the Islanders shouldn't be too far behind. They played very similar games. So I don't know. They don't scare me. That fourth line has been on that team for, I don't know, probably like 9-10 years now. So it's time to move on.
Seems like it.
Yeah, okay. Nick, who do you have for your final team of this offseason that has not been the best for these guys?
Some people might disagree with me, but I'm going to say Ottawa. I really don't like the offense of this team anymore. Like, if you want to throw up the lines there, like last year they had Debrincat up there. Now they're replacing him with Kubalik. And I know Josh Norris is coming back from that injury, so they're replacing whoever they had up there on the second line last year. But I just – that fourth line is not a serious fourth line to me. Like, Parker Kelly, Kastelik, and Zach McEwen, I mean, that's just an analytics nightmare over there. Like, that's like an advanced stats nightmare for those guys right there. And those guys don't even put up points. The third line's great. Second line, I don't really know because Norris has missed the season. Kubalik is a 40-point guy. I mean, I guess that's fine for the second line, but for a team that needs to improve, I don't really think that's a guy that you want to bring in. Maybe for the third line, like fringe second line, sure. The defense, now I'll get to those guys. I mean, the defense is just like, it's good. Like, it's really good. Like, you have, like, your top three D-men are Chabot, Chikrin, and Sanderson are good. Zub, I think they like that guy over there. Brandstrom still has a lot to prove left in this league. Hamonic, I don't mind, but it's the same as last year, really, for me. Like, I don't see it getting much better. The one thing I will say they did get better in is net. They got better with Korpisalo. That was a good signing for them.
Yep, I agree with you on that one.
I do like that because you need to upgrade in net. Cam Talbot's just not doing it. I mean, you can speak firsthand experience on that, Kirk. Cam Talbot doesn't do it.
Yeah, no, it's just not always working for him.
Yeah, so that I also wanted to touch on the quote from Pierre Dorian, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, saying that people were asking if he expects this team to make the playoffs this season. Like, is that the expectation? Which the answer should be obvious. Yes, obviously you have to expect you to the playoffs. If you're at this point in the rebuild, you need to. You said the rebuild was over 2 years ago, so why is it? I mean, like, why would you not expect to be in the playoffs? And then he said, not the correct answer. He said that we'll make that decision more so, and I'll answer that question more so when we get up to training camp and see what our roster looks like then. Now, if he's got some more moves planned, that's fine. But if he goes with this roster and doesn't expect them to make the playoffs, what are you doing?
Yeah, I like what you said with what they have now is like it's a whole young team, and like the fourth line, you know, it's not good at all. But the Ottawa Senators are a team that still have a lot of prospects and people in the minors who are ready to come up soon. No, you got Jacob Bernard-Docker, Mads Søgaard, another great goalie who showed a bit last season, showed what he's made of, and I think that Korpisalo is a good kind of pathway goalie to bring him into the NHL. similar to what Minnesota has in Jesper Wallstedt. You know, that bring him in slowly. There's no need to rush a goalie. You know, that never works out. We know it before. It don't work. You can't rush a goalie in. It will not work. But they still have a lot of time left. They're not in any win-now situation. But Pierre Dorion, when he's saying that, you know, this is we got to see what we're going to be doing in training camp. Like, if you're going to say that, bring up the guys that you have, that you trust, that you want to work into the lineup eventually. If you're going to go for it, you got to get them the experience before you can just put them into a situation in the playoffs, you know? So, the Ottawa Senators, yeah, I agree. They did not have the best offseason. They did get a good return for who they traded last week. Debrincat, yeah. They did get a decent return for him. Is what they got what they could have for knowing that he didn't want to stay. But, you know, it's still not they still could have done a lot more, I would agree.
The time for waiting and seeing is over. You've already got Stutzel and Tkachuk on those big deals. You got Chabot on a big deal. Like, you've got your guys that are going to be around for a long period of time locked up. You've got Norris on. I'm pretty sure Norris on a big deal now.
He is, yeah.
Batherson's on a long-term deal. Those guys are all, and I mean, Giroux is there for probably the remainder of his career. So get moving, get it going right now. Like, I mean, I know it's a horrible time to be getting good in the Atlantic Division because there's so many good teams, but get it going. Make sure you're one of those best teams, because if you get in right now, like, you could probably do a lot of damage with the top 3 defense that you have there. You've got a decent goalie. You've got a really good 5 out of top 6, I'll say. I don't trust Dominic Kubalik, so he could prove me wrong. I doubt it, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's time to get going. If they got these guys signed for long term, those contracts are now in effect. You gotta go. Like, you got no time to waste at this point, to waste those guys' contracts, waste their time with the Ottawa Senators. But that is all we have for this video. If you want to see more content from us, we're going to have a lot more coming. We also have a lot. If you want to check it out, subscribe to the channel. Make sure to like the video if you did like the video as well. Got a lot more coming. So if you like the video, like, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a good night. See you later.